Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. Tonight we have a interesting show. One thing you might notice immediately is that there's no scotch tonight, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Nothing alarming is going on that caused that, but we'll talk about that. We have a topic of outdated systems and what makes wargame systems or RPG or whatever game systems really outdated. I'd like to have a discussion with the chat on that topic, so we're going to talk about that. We are clipping Epic of the Peloponnesian War, which is a pretty interesting older design, not that old, but sort of older design from Clash of Arms. I showed it to a buddy of mine, and he's like, Clash of Arms is still in business? I'm like, I talked to them on the phone not that long ago, actually. Yeah, they're still in business. They are all over the place. So let's talk about Scott Gunn, who is our channel of the week. Link in the video description. He's doing some very interesting things, and he is under 1,000 subscribers, so go check him out. Subscribe if you like his content. It looks pretty good to me, and I have subscribed. I would like to give a shout out to everyone who has popped up so far. Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, Charles Latour, Greyhawk Grognard, Arn Man, Carl Creeder, Perfidious Albion, of course, John Longshore is here, 6 Actual, Rich L. Camp 1, Rick Cox, Lee Grant, John Clark, Bill Simone, Achilles, Jeff Anderson, James Whitmer, 6 Actual, who I said already, Henry Sikorsky, Mike Anthony, Alan Salazar, Command Tent, and Joe Faust, and Matt Taylor. Hi, how's everybody doing? So this is our counter-clipping show for October 11th. Sort of a stuttering start here, but I got, a lot going on. October 11th, 2021. So I guess I'll get the big thing out of the way. I'm having surgery tomorrow, so I thought it was a bad idea for me to have scotch tonight. It is super minor. I should be in and out, and everything should be fine. And I should be back, really Wednesday. I'll be going back to work on Wednesday, so everything should be fine by then. I got, not the most awesome news from the doctor's visits in the last 2 weeks, but there's people with a lot bigger problems than I do. My problem is basically I need to stop being a sedentary lardass, and I'll be in better shape. So we've got, of course, we had our big Origins weekend last week. Bought entirely too much stuff. A lot of it was commands and colors related, but there was definitely some hex and counter stuff going on there. We do have, I've been clipping with this. I'm almost done with this game. This is about 3/4 done. I've clipped this entire thing with these and it was pretty clean. And once you get the hang of it, the turn sequence is somewhat asymmetric. We think it worked really well. So we're very happy with the game overall. I think I've mentioned before that if I have a complaint, like a real complaint, it's only with the markers. There are a lot of markers in the game, and they're not all, I felt, sufficiently differentiated. So, for example, there's about 4, maybe 5 or 6 different kinds of markers that are basically just different configurations of explosions. And you had to kind of memorize what all the different explosion shapes meant. I felt like that could have been done better with just a little piece of text or a letter or something like that, code on the counter to say, okay, this is the disorganized, or this is the disorganized marker, for example. I feel like that would have helped. This is a super minor issue. It's my only really serious complaint. I guess I'm not sure I see that it plays quite as quickly as I thought it was going to play, but it is definitely a solid game, and I think a really good entry from Compass Games. So, all right, so let's catch up to the chat. Now, what made me think of outdated systems, segueing into why this topic came up, was that our next game is going to be a Europa game. I've had plenty of things to say about Europa that I feel make it an outdated system in a lot of ways, but I was also one of the people pushing for War in the Desert to be our next game. And War in the Desert should not have a number of the same stressors regarding density and air, number of air pieces that you have to keep track of that we had with Second Front. We'll have 3 players instead of 5. But that'll slow us down a little bit. I'd prefer to have at least 4, so we're splitting both sides. But it's a system that dates from the early 70s, 73, 74 with Drying Austin. Now, the other thing, though, is that that system evolved to some degree, right, over the course of time, right? The maps evolved, the OBs evolved, the rules evolved, and what you see in a game like, say, War in the Desert is different in a lot of ways, with a rulebook about twice as long as what you saw in the predecessor games, Western Desert and Torch. And the Near East, but I'm not sure what was in the Near East, because it was just, other than maps and OBs for like Iran and stuff like that, I'm not sure what the rules looked like. Let me put it that way. So I have the advantage here in that I have the game. I have War in the Desert, so I can, actually read the rules, for example, which was an advantage I did not have with Second Front. And I don't know what the differences between like Europa Second Front rules and Europa War in the Desert rules are offhand. You could do a comparison, but they're not identical, right? There's some unique stuff in Second Front and some unique stuff in War in the Desert. And even during like the tenure of GRD controlling Europa, that rule system changed, right? One of the things that I've mentioned at various points in the past about the Europa stacking rules, which is fairly baroque, right? And somebody said, "No, those aren't the Europa stacking rules. You don't know what you're talking about." Blah, 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 blah. So I did the legwork and looked into it. And I forget who that was. This was some months ago now, so apologize if that was you. They were right? That the simpler Europa stacking system was the Europa stacking system at one point. But at one point, and that point was first to fight, the GRD revision of Case White, that stacking limit changed, right? And it changed in such a way that you could have a lot more units in the stack. Now, what people were like playing with in the real world with that, I don't know. Maybe the first to fight stacking rules reflected what people were actually doing, and that's why they made that change. That is possible. So, all right, let's try to check. Am I glitching? Looks like everything's working now, hopefully. We did have an outage. We had a power outage yesterday, so that screwed things up. 56 watts. So, Brant, thanks for stopping by. First of all, yes, please give the video a thumbs up. Please do consider supporting Ardwulf's Lair to help defray the costs of, convention going and things like that. You can do that by checking out the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi links in the video description. And, thumbs up and be here and all that supports the channel as well. So thanks everybody for coming in. So hopefully the stream is working okay now. I'm going to check it. This is what happens when I start talking, right? All right, certainly working now. All right. So anyway, all right, let's hope it continues to work. Like I said, we did have some internet glitching yesterday, so don't be shocked. I pulled it up and it worked right away, so... All right, so I think we're going to have to just pick up the stream, pick up the chat where we left off here. Okay, very good. So let's talk about Origins. I forget the exact number, but Gamma released their attendance numbers, and it was in the neighborhood of 10,000, a little over 10,000. That's about what I guessed from what I looked at, right? About half the space, probably, a similar density. That means about half the people. So we got about half the people, which, considering, the time of year especially, I think that whole thing has to be considered a big success. I do know that it was nice today, wasn't it? I do know that Ohio Renaissance Fair, which is happening not right now, but this weekend, is booming. So people are sick of sitting at home in their computer chairs. Me too. Sitting at home in their computer chairs, is exhausting in a way that getting out and doing stuff isn't necessarily. And lots of us, me included, have put on weight. And I'm blaming the pandemic. I was on a pretty good weight loss trajectory before the pandemic started and we all got outsourced, and I started sitting at home a lot. So a lot of BattleTech was happening at Origins, by the way. And whoever the publisher is, I forget who that is, had a booth in the dealer's room as well. So anyway, I don't know what might have happened to cause the glitch, but like I said, we certainly had some internet issues here over the last couple of days. So sorry about that. Not my fault. Starfleet, there are still diehards, though a lot of folks have migrated to Federation Commander. That's probably true. There's talk. So there is a very long-running Starfleet Battles group here in Columbus. And it is Catalyst Game Systems, yes. And that group is talking about doing a Starfleet Battles thing at Origins next year. And I don't know what that'll look like. That might look like just a couple of people getting together and playing Starfleet Battles. I, at one point, had Starfleet Battles stuff, quite a bit of stuff. I don't know about everything, but I had quite a bit. And I dumped it, too. And, my current group has people that play Starfleet Battles in it. Nowadays, I reliably play Starfleet Battles roughly once. This thing's quick squeaking again. I reliably play Starfleet Battles once or twice a year, and I can go. I could go monthly until the pandemic to the local event up at the Soldiery, which was a monthly event. So I picked it up again. I picked up the core set and advanced missions, which is really all you need, and I picked up. For occasional pickup games. If you're going to be a serious Starfleet Battles person, then maybe it isn't. But Mo, there he is. Thanks for stopping by. And I picked up Fed and Empire as well. Which I still haven't played, but I'm not I'm not getting rid of any of that stuff anymore. I am at this point reluctant to get rid of stuff if I feel like I even want to play it, and not to judge it by how likely I think I am to play it, because I have been proven wrong too often on those points before. And nowadays there's always online. Let's say we get for some reason you can't play in person anymore. You can play online, in which case the world's erased. You can play whatever you want. So, no, Federation Commander is kind of a stripped-down Starfleet Battles, but it retains all the fundamental essence of Starfleet Battles. It's just a bit streamlined. I'm going to say Starfleet Battles is one of those games that's got that super complicated reputation, and it's probably considered outdated. But it's also one of those games where you really don't need to understand the majority of the rules to play it at a functional level, or even to be kind of good at it. So Rick Cox asks about TSWW and whether it is considered the successor to the Europa series. So that's a complicated question, because I think that's going to depend who you talk to. There are some people who do consider it that. I think, as John Longshore mentions, according to John Bannerman, who is the head of that project, he doesn't really see it that way. And the Europa people that I know do not see it that way. They're pretty consistently poo-pooed the TSWW thing. I think that's got a lot of moving parts, right? Certainly there was a Europa trajectory, right? And you see this with a lot of games that have been around for a similar period of time, although there's not that many game systems that are still around, having been introduced in the first half of the 70s. Where the games get more and more complicated, right? I already mentioned, Marina Mercura, which was the original game on the invasion of Greece and Yugoslavia, had, I think, a 24, 30-page rulebook or something like that, and it's 40 or 50 pages in Balkan Front behind me, right? So, Ronald Dickinson from sunny Newark, Ohio, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, now if you want to play with things like the winds and stuff like that, then yeah, you gotta learn their weapons and their unique gear. But a lot of people just play with Federation, Klingons, and Romulans. I mean, our last game at the last Winterfest was, I think, a Fed, 2 Romulans, a Gorn, who are pretty easy to play. There may have been don't think there was a Kzinti in there, because back in the day I liked to play Kzinti. And a Fed and a Klingon or 2. So I think I was playing the Gorn, because I like to play the Gorn. But if you're playing with the core set races, it's not that bad. Anyway, I don't know what kind of... I mean, the entire time I've been playing Starfleet Battles, it has been the quote-unquote Captain's Edition, and I think it's still called that, so I don't know. And I know there's been some changes in that time frame, because that's like 20 years. But I don't know what the details of the evolution is. Jeff Beeler says, well, Dan Slimak, I assume that's directed at me. I'll tell you, actually. I don't even have to guess. Now, this isn't incoming stuff. There is some incoming stuff. This also does not count expansions. This just counts, like, standalone games, right? It does count magazine games and folios and things like that, but it does not count expansions. So, like, all that Commands and Color stuff I picked up at Origins is not added into this total. That number is 323 at the moment. Now, we did sell some stuff, right? We did do some giveaways, so that has lowered that number a little bit, but not that much. So, Jeff Beeler says that he likes Europa better when the games are smaller with the GRD levels of detail. Second Front was the last purchase, and it's still in the box. I mean, I remember when Second Front came out, because it was at the then scandalous price of something like $100. Commander's Edition went away a long time ago, though. I mean, when I was like first paying attention in the early 80s, we were looking at Commander's Edition. Let's see here. So Marina Mercure was, and so there's a bunch of small Europa games, right? Maybe not as many as we would like, but there's things like Case White, which is the invasion of Poland, Narvik, which is the invasion of Norway, and I think a couple of hypothetical scenarios for the invasion of Norway as well. There's Marina Mercure, which is the Balkans, really not the whole Balkans, it's really just Greece and Yugoslavia. And then, the desert ones, the 3 desert ones. I think the Near East was not a standalone. You had to combine it with something, but you could certainly play Western Desert or Torch by themselves. These are pretty small, modest games. That's one of the things that appealed to me about keeping... figure out where I'm at here. About keeping War in the Desert when, it passed through my hands a year or so ago, and I thought about getting rid of it. It's one of the factors that led to me keeping it, and I'm glad I did, because as I kind of predicted, now I want to play it again. I want to have that Europa experience again, and probably I'll be frustrated with it, but I'll also probably look back on it as a valuable experience. Stigler says that Igo Yugo is still alive, and he's of course right about that. That is, there's too many games that it's so simple. It's your turn, then it's my turn. Now, your turn and my turn don't have to be a big, long, involved affair. And even games with interactivity in the turn sequence, like, I'm going to say OCS, in that your opponent kind of has to be there and paying attention for part of that time, is still fundamentally Igo Yugo. Yeah, Jeff is right about that. I mean, there's more scope in Balkan Front, but Balkan Front also, if you have it as a standalone game, you can basically play Marina Mercure out of it. Block Oddity says, don't forget the thumbs up. He is absolutely right. Please thumbs up the video. Carl says he has 1,184 games. Now, my total is just war games, or at least war game adjacent things. I've got quite a bit of RPG stuff as well. But then, like, how do you keep track of that, right? Jeff, I actually think Narvik was smaller than the Winter War. I could be mistaken about that. I'm willing to be proven wrong about that. That's good. E4 Airman points out that MMP's Rising Sun reprint ASL module is shipping right now. I'm pretty sure they haven't finished yet, but 1184 is way more than I want, to be honest. That's getting into, crazy strat. I mean, I'm still buying stuff too, right, at 325. So So Perfidious Albion asks, the original Europa up to Barbarossa used the same core rule set. So the first, I didn't actually want this to be the Europa show, but sure, we can talk about this. So the first Europa games are 2 games that were released in Ziplocs from GDW in like 72, 73, 74. Drangnok Austin, which is the East Front, up to, I think, early 42, something like that. And then Untenscheiden, which is the next couple of years on the East Front, that expands the map area, expands the order of battle. And in Europa terms, when we say order of battle, we mean the countermix. Rising Sun is not a straight reprint from what I'm hearing, by the way. So it was later, the idea occurred to somebody that, hey, we can run all of World War II through this system, right? And the scale of that is not that different from SPI's War in Europe. It's a little different. In terms of square footage, if you map out Europa, pretty sure you're going to end up with I think War in Europe is like 20 miles to the hex, and Europa is like 16 miles to the hex. Europa is 16 miles to the hex. That I can tell you. I'd have to get out War in Europe and look. So that means that then Fire in the East is the revision of Drangnok Austin, and Scorched Earth is the revision of Untenscheiden, which I am badly mispronouncing, by the way. So let's see here. I just never mind. I got it right. And then there was a whole bunch of additional games based on that sequence, right? And there were supposed to be a couple of other games that GDW never got around to doing. GRD, or Games Research and Design, which was a group led by Winston Hamilton, who was a big Europa guy, and who at one point I think was actually the president of Gamma. Yes, but I'm not doing that, Brant. The Europa series was kind of handed off from GDW before GDW went away, I might add, off to GRD, which was, again, Winston's group. And GRD released a number of things. They released the long-awaited Second Front, which is Western Europe, basically from the invasion of Sicily in July of 43 up to the end of the war. So it's a huge game, right? There were a number of other things that they were either going to revise or including the Grand Europa module that was going to tie the whole thing together and allow you to play the whole thing in one fairly impractical bundle. And none of that stuff ever came out. But nevertheless, GRD did some things that, they filled in some of the pieces of the puzzle. Unfortunately, Winston passed away, and that was basically the end of GRD. The series then passed to Historical Military Simulations, I think is the current group's name, which produced Wavell's War, which is a kind of unnecessary product that allows you to link Balkan Front and War in the Desert, and includes the stuff in East Africa, which is, cool, but, it was less important than the other stuff. With a commensurate increase in complexity as well. I'm trying to figure out how I'm sorting these things. There's a raid counter and a rated counter. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to assume they go in the same compartment, so it's all good. Not perfectly. There'll be a unboxing of this, by the way. So there is apparently a new mini HASL included in this printing of Rising Sun. That's my understanding. I was trying for months and months and months to get like what was in the new Hollow Legions, what was in the new Rising Sun, and I am not aware that they've still said that. But some people on Facebook are saying there's a little bit more in it than there was in the last printing. Anyway. All right. All right. So Alan Salazar, let's loop back a little bit here. Alan asks, did Flying Colors displace wooden ships and Iron Men with a new system or an evolved system? And Stegler points out later that it doesn't really displace wooden ships and Iron Men. Flying Colors is more of a squadrons game where you're running a squadron of ships. Wooden Ships and Iron Men is really a ship game where you're running a ship or two, and it becomes pretty hard to manage if you're running more than that in Wooden Ships and Iron Men. So, like, big naval battles are actually, run a lot smoother in Flying Colors than they do in Wooden Ships and Iron Men by design. That's what the games were designed to do. So no, I don't think so. But I will say that I like both games. So. That's just me. But they're doing different things. Mike Anthony mentions that Wavell's War is hard to find. Yes, it is. So somebody put a Fire in the East, all of the out-of-print Europa stuff, which is all of it, goes for good change. The ones that I've seen go for less outrageous sums include the Balkan Front that I bought back here. I want to say I paid it's about a year ago now. I want to say I paid about $60 for it. That's pretty good. You go to eBay right now and it'll be going for like $150, which is too much, right? That's why you don't trust eBay. I do have Trireme back here behind me? I do not have Trireme behind me because I didn't have room for it, but I do have Trireme as well. Did I miss a corner? No. Jeff, I would make the case that games are still using that classic Avalon Hill CRT, just maybe not unmodified anymore. Jeff mentions that Narvik and the Battle of Britain game is called their finest hour, which is, objectively the best Battle of Britain game title that you could have. I never owned which ones did I own? I owned Case White. This is back in the day, not right now. I owned Case White, I owned Narvik, and I owned Fire in the East. So what I have now is War in the Desert, Balkan Front, and For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is like a Europa module, which means it's supposed to tie into the whole war simulation that we never actually got. We haven't even gotten into Master Europa. Which was a side project by some fans or by a fan at least, to put a unified rule set together to run the whole thing. And by some accounts, they succeeded. It's got its admirers, but from what I've heard of it, it bloats the whole thing very badly. So, Greyhawk Grognard, thanks for stopping by. So, yeah, I don't know which new campaign game is in the new Rising Sun. I do know there's one coming. To me. So I think we were involved in like the last people to get that ordered. So what's on its way is First to Fight, which is the revision of Case White, and Fire in the East. I found an unpunched Fire in the East on eBay for a price I didn't find. Well, I did find it objectionable, but it wasn't as much as it usually goes for. Why did I need that? That's a great question. We'll not be answering that this week. I'm not sure that I did. I think there's more sense in in owning Case White because it's a pretty small game. It's actually was intended as like the training game. John Stanley says Squad Leader has fans separate and apart from ASL. That's true, but they are not numerous. Almost the whole fan base migrated to ASL. There are some people who have decided to hang on to Squad Leader for their own reasons. Now, but that makes it a good example of why there is some degree of subjectivity in saying this system is outdated and this system is not, right? To ASL players, Squad Leader is absolutely outdated. One of the things that I suspect is the case, though, is that the players who have stuck with Squad Leader as opposed to going to ASL are probably people who play just the basic Squad Leader and not Squad Leader with the expansions, because as you like work your way down that expansion chain, adding Cross of Iron and Crescendo of Doom and GI Anvil of Victory, you get something that looks increasingly like Advanced Squad Leader. Carl, thanks for stepping by. If you I think Carl is saying goodbye to somebody else, actually. Except it's like super messy, right? So that's the reason why they started doing ASL in the first place, and then it kind of turned into its own thing, which one might argue, I think, with some justification, that it's super bloated. That reminds me, though, that the ASLOC ASL Oktoberfest event just concluded in Cleveland. And, once again, I thought about going for a minute and didn't go. I just don't play enough ASL. It's all tournament, not all, but it's a lot of tournament play, and I'm not into that. It's super competitive, and, there's some new people there that showed up and apparently had a great time, so maybe I'm just nuts and I should just go, and it's not like it'd be an expensive trip, right? But I can't get the time off for the OCS thing we're doing later this month, so I definitely couldn't swing Oktoberfest this weekend. Perfidious Albion, that's kind of the point. That's why what we ended up with was not just like a Squad Leader unified rulebook. That's why we got a whole new game. Now, that whole new game, at this point, though, has certainly inherited many, many artifacts from the days of Squad Leader, right? From the frankly primitive counter layout to the some of the markers just don't make much sense, the way they were laid out on the counter sheets. You've got like a non-unified thing where you have DMs on the front of a counter and a prep fire on the back, or random front to back on the markers, which I personally kills my OCD. ASL and SL are two different games. They should be seen as different games. They are definitely related games, but they're less similar than like D&D and AD&D were back when TSR was making that distinction. Stigler says that Squad Leader was a collection of Chrome rules looking for a system to belong to. I mean, I think the original Squad Leader is a super influential and important game. So I don't think that's a fair statement. Let me put it that way. I can't get enough DM markers because my guys are all shot up all the time. All right, we have siege markers. We have walled markers. I don't know what some of this stuff does. I've glanced at the rules for this, not really much more. So yeah, I mean, ASL was the consolidation of all the rules, but the rules were rewritten in the process, and it turned into its own game, right? And this is all discussed in the original introduction to the ASL rulebook. I do feel like ASL is now now suffering from the legacy of it's kind of straining under the idea that everything must be published now in the same way that it was published back in the Avalon Hill days, and the contents of the modules have been reshuffled somewhat, but it's resulted in a lot of really expensive modules, including some core stuff, which is one reason why there's also people that just play starter kit and say, "Nah, I'm good. I don't need to go to ASL. I'm good with this." And I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. Tom Allman says if his girlfriend dumps him, he takes up ASL. It is a lifestyle game, right? It is a game that is very demanding on both your time, potentially, and your wallet. So they did take way too long to introduce the starter kits, but it's not. That was not a trivial effort either, and I'm happy to say that I am pleased with the job that they did on them. And I will always prefer that publishers take their time and do better stuff rather than rush stuff out and do crappier stuff. So it wasn't even that they didn't have an entry-level product. It was that, the core products, the rulebook and Beyond Valor, were out of print like 80% of the time. So if you wanted to get into ASL, well, I guess wait a couple years before the stuff is in print. Now, I mean, you can always find some ASL people, which is, of course, the best way to learn ASL anyway. And just play with their stuff. That's fine. We are closing in. I don't know that we're going to pick up something else. I spent a lot of time over the last week or so stickering blocks. I got the blocks stickered for most of the commands and color stuff. Granada here is stickered. I feel like there was something else I was stickering too. Can't remember what it was. Let's see. We've got like a garrison marker that there's only one. This is a neat looking game, by the way. There will be an unboxing video if you want to see the innards. I think the point that Squad Leader becomes, as you add those expansions, you add more and more and more Chrome, some of which conflicts with the previous Chrome or with the previous core rules, and you eventually get to something that's very hard to play, let alone learn. But then they landed on ASL, which is rather famously a game that is simply not well, I don't want to say it's not possible to learn how to play it from that rule book, but boy, it ain't easy. Andrew says he thinks Revolution Games blows away ASL. I don't know what that means. Revolution Games is a publisher, ASL is a game system, so I don't know what that means, unless you're referring to some specific product that Revolution Games does, in which case, okay, maybe, I don't know. Although I don't feel like anything that Revolution Games is doing is an attempt to live in the same space that ASL occupies either. Granada is extremely attractive. If you haven't seen the inside, I did an unboxing on Thursday. I think Mo's preview video showed up today, so check those out. It's the cover is stunning. The components are really nice. One thing I liked with the blocks is that the labels are just a little bit smaller than the blocks, which is not the case with commands and colors. So the game systems of Revolution Games. I mean, if you are saying that you just like things that Revolution Games better than ASL, okay, then that's, I'm not going to argue with that. I do like what Revolution Games is doing, and they had a sale. I bought a couple things. I think after the stream last week, I ordered a couple of things from Revolution Games. I ordered, you might notice on the shelf, Washington's Crossing, which is apparently one of Revolution Games' first games, and I ordered Königsberg as well. And I probably should have ordered Thunder in the Ozarks, but I didn't. But Blind Swords is a chit pull system. It's a bit of an oddball chit pull system, which I've talked about in other places. There's a complete playthrough series of Thunder in the Ozarks, which is the P. Ridge game, on the channel, so check that out if you want to see that game in detailed. I have played GMT's Wing Leader at a convention, and I gotta say I wasn't crazy about it. It may just have been, that day was not the perfect day. So I'm hesitant to dismiss it. I will tell you that tons of people really like Wing Leader. So that I don't like it doesn't mean a thing, right? Tom Allman asks about War of the Suns. So there is a revised rulebook to that. It is, I believe, on Board Game Geek. I would recommend grabbing that revised rulebook. It is clearer. Other than that, we have not had a chance to get it to a table yet. I definitely want to do that. It's a fascinating topic. Ken mentions Red Typhoon. Yeah, well, I should have ordered everything, right? but I had just spent so much money already. Long Street Attacks is great. Very nice entry in that same Blind Sword system. Now, the Gettysburg game, A Most Fearful Sacrifice, is a new system from Herman. This is coming up from Flying Pig. They did a Kickstarter, a very successful Kickstarter for it. And it's a bit higher scale, in that it's like the standard Blind Sword scale. The units are regiments. In the Black Swan system, the Gettysburg system, they are sort of like half brigades or third brigades. And instead of the chits, you have cards, which is kind of what the chits feel like anyway. Sheriff Harry, first of all, welcome to the stream. Says CDG time is over. I still think there's plenty of room for new and interesting CDGs. Now, what I will say is, it's funny you should mention Here I Stand in Virgin Queen, because those are two of the hardest CDGs to play. I mean that in the sense that they take quite a while. So they take a 6 to 9 hours of play. And they're really, Here I Stand especially, to a lesser extent Virgin Queen, really kind of sucks with less than 6 players. I realize you could play it with 3. I realize there's a 2-player variant, which I have not tried. And Virgin Queen is a little more flexible, but the game is best with 6 players, right? And everyone agrees with that. The other thing is that, at least personally, I do not think all 6-player positions in Here I Stand are equally interesting. I think the Protestants are very interesting. I think England is very interesting. I think France is boring. I think Austria is largely boring. The papacy is pretty cool, too. The Ottomans are pretty boring. So you need somebody who will embrace those player positions that I think are boring, to play something like Here I Stand, to the best, to its fullest potential. So you need 6 people, and the right people in the right roles in that game. So for that reason, it's a very hard game to make happen, and that's what I mean by it's one of the hardest games. Jen Longshore mentions he hears War of the Sun deserves an honorable mention for trying something on that topic. That's not entirely untrue, really. I mean, that's, I think, intended to be funny, but one of the things that War of the Suns is it's one of very, very few games on its subject at anything like that scale. Now, there's the other example is War of Resistance, which is I think it's the Glory series, which is the Pacific Europa. I've looked at that, and I've talked about it with the with Europa folks, and I have strong reasons to believe that it A, does not work very well, and B, is probably a horrendous slog to play. So from that perspective, if you're interested in the topic and you want a game that covers the entire Sino-Japanese War, Second Sino-Japanese War in detail, War of the Suns is really the only game in town. So for that reason, I think some other people are probably willing to, complain, but cut it some slack and try and work with it to try to get it to do what it is supposed to do. War of the Suns does have a map overlay if you blow the big dam. Yes, that is correct. Panzer North Africa, I suspect that'll be, unless I'm misremembering where that is in the GMT queue, I think we'll see that early 22. That's a guess, but... John Stanley's asking about downtown air war in Vietnam. So I have heard that where's this going? I have heard that a new printing of that is in the works. I have no reason to think it's particularly close. I would assume that... first of all, I think the designer, Lee Brimacombe Wood, wants to finish some other things first, and before revisiting the downtown system, which I think is Wing Leader, I think. So GMT got a container of games, which included more than they expected. So that's good. I would love... John Longshore should go to Yukon. John, look into that if you're not familiar with it, which you probably are. Yukon is in, if I'm remembering correctly, is in Ann Arbor. So, Pete Bartlett, thanks for stopping by. Haven't seen you around in a while. So, things are starting to, at least at GMT, a little bit of the pressure has renewed. Perfidious Albion is talking about third-party aircraft cards for the Air War games, the Brimacombe Wood sequence. They're not all by Lee, but a bunch of them are. Those are available through the Game Crafter. One of our guys bought those for Red Storm, and yes, buy those. If you're going to play Red Storm, or I think they're available for Downtown and maybe for Bloody April. Those streamline the whole game. No, they did not announce a reprint, but Lee said somewhere, I think on Consim World, that he was going to get back to the downtown system once he was finished with what he wanted to do with Wing Leader. It's possible that the game with the overlay is War Resistance. That, thinking about it, I'm not sure there's an overlay in War of the Suns. So, all right. So let's see how we're doing this. There are these revolt markers, of which there's a ton, and they're the different colors, and I don't know what that means. There are these seasonal markers. Don't know where to put those. Well, you can never quite get it in as few compartments as you want it anyway, though, can you? So we're done punching and clipping and organizing, at least perfunctorily. Epic of the Peloponnesian War. This is a card-driven game, by the way. So let me get back to that point, actually, because it's germane to our topic tonight. Trying not to dump the clippings on the floor, which happened the other day. There are a lot of different card game models. There's the classic Harmonesque card-driven game model, right? And there's been a lot of games in that sort of slot. And if folks are a little bit tired of that, I have some sympathy for that, but I still think that, maybe we don't need another variation on Paths of Glory at this point, but Paths of Glory remains an awesome game, and people are still playing it. So, which is, not necessarily the only example of the archetypical Hermanesque card-driven mechanic, right? Something like this, I haven't really parsed this entire game, right? But there's cards The letter in the corner tells you who can play the card, so this can be played by either the Spartans or the Athenians. There's a number down here which tells you how many of this particular card are in the deck, and everything else is just like an event. So, this is not that same model, not that same mechanic. The Burning Blue is the it's not by Lee Brimacombe Wood, but it's the same idea, and I think heavily inspired by Downtown, of the Battle of Britain. I have that. It looks amazing. I really want to play that. Alan Salazar, by no means is that system done. I mean, we literally saw in the last 2 years, we've seen 2 or 3 new eras opened up in Commands and Colors. Now, if you're alternatively asking if there is any other period that I'm interested in that Commands and Colors might do, then the answer is I can't think of one, but, I'm willing to be proven wrong. I really like the Napoleonics. I really like the Ancients. I've had nothing but misery playing Memoir 44, but that probably isn't the system. I think that's just the things I had the misfortune or stupidity to sign up for at Origins. There's the World War I one. Just not interested in that. I'm just not. The Civil War one probably plays pretty well. I would think. I've never played Battle Cry. And I wouldn't probably buy Battle Cry unless somebody redid it as a block game. Then I might. I don't see any. I take it back. Age of Sail. I wonder if that system could be adapted to Age of Sail. I don't know if it could. Maybe it can't. I certainly don't see an obvious way to do it, but I haven't given it particularly a lot of thought either. And there's still plenty of room for a number of those games to be expanded. In particular, the Medieval line, which has received no expansions. It's an oddball because, Commands and Colors Medieval. Okay, cool. What are we going to cover in Commands and Colors Medieval, the base set? 100 Years' War, maybe the Crusades, something like that? Nope, it's all Byzantine battles. Now, I think that's interesting, but I think a lot of people are going to look at that box and say, I have never heard of any of these. So there's like a lot of opportunity to expand that with new scenarios and packs and stuff like that to cover things like the War of the Roses and the 100 Years' War, and the Crusades and the Italian Wars and all kinds of stuff. So, all right, let's look it up. I don't want to propagate bad info. Yeah, Lee Brimacombe Wood, designer of Burning Blue. So I'm wrong about that. I thought it was somebody else, but maybe that's maybe I'm thinking of Bloody April, which is the World War I one, by the way. Let's see what we have going on here. Got to keep a strict eye on the marketing stuff. Get the chat back here. So yeah, Red Storm. Actually, I think the one that's not Lee is Red Storm. Thinking about it, there is a fantasy Commands and Colors Battle Lore. I have no interest in that either. So, if I'll tell you what, if you want a 2021 reprint from GMT and it ain't on that list right now, you ain't getting it in 2021. You'd be lucky to get it in 2022. At this point, at this point, all of the Medieval Crusades Commands and Colors is in P500. Great. I think that end of the Commands and Colors system is the one that's most obviously in need of expansion. I think we could stand a scenario pack for Tricorn as well, to be honest. More Amrev stuff. I have recently picked up like 3 different American Revolution games. What is that? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Including Washington's Crossing. So, I've heard that Battle Lore is fun. There was one of my tables of Commands and Colors Napoleonics at Origins was a couple who had played Battle Lore and liked it and wanted to try one of the historical games. So, So yeah, I mean I feel like it's hit all the big bases at this point, but there's still they could do another 6 expansions for Ancients too. What if you did? Somebody asked in the comments of an older video, what is there a game, or maybe this was on Twitter? Is there a game on the China Three Kingdoms period? And I've said, not really. There's not in English. There's a couple in Chinese, but you got to do your own research on that and read Chinese. So the closest I could count with was Berg's Dynasty, which I do have, which is not on the shelf behind me, but it is. It is an interesting looking game. Maybe you could do something like that, like an Ancient China Battles or something like that. I'm not sure how popular that would be, but the Samurai Battles, they did that, right? It hit its number with no trouble. So there's a lot of people that like the system and would be happy to buy whatever Mr. Borg would like to do next. So... Doug says you could easily do 30 Years War. That's absolutely true. I mean, I don't know if you could support a whole game on that, though. If you did, like, I'm going to say Commands and Colors Early Modern, where you could cover things like 30 Years War and 7 Years War and War of the Austrian Succession. There's a, War of the Spanish Succession, 9 Years War, tons and tons and tons of battles in there. That you might be able to support out of one core game with expansions and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, in that sense, sure. Brant, I would be super interested in seeing that. So that's a super interesting period that it really hasn't been touched by Western wargame designers. Berg's Dynasty, I think, went out of print from Hollandspiel. I might be misremembering that. And I managed to get it before it went out of print. And I think I had to actually call and say, hey, you didn't ship me the counter sheet. So Romance of the Three Kingdoms was specifically the reference that was made in the Twitter feed. And I remember playing that as a teen, I think, too, on a Nintendo or something like that. Was definitely not the kind of thing one normally associates with the Nintendo platform. That's another thing is, and I really want to see more Great Battles of History entries, and I don't know why we haven't seen more of those. There's so many things you could do. I mean, the Roman period is pretty exhaustively covered at this point. At one point, Mark Herman was talking about a Hoplite 2, which would be the remaining battles from the Peloponnesian War that aren't... I'm an idiot. That aren't already covered. Of which there's a lot, some big battles and some small battles. So you got like tons of extra ancient Greek battles that could be covered in GBOH. In addition to things like ancient China and stuff like that. I'd be all over that. So if there was a GBOH volume on ancient China, that would be awesome. Commands and Colors Vietnam. CNC Colonials we got. It's Tricorn from Compass. We have the Mongols for GBOH. Hoplite is, so there are some expansions for Hoplite that were released in C3I. That, I don't know if expansions is the right word, but some additional scenarios and stuff. The Mongols, the Devil's Horseman is the Mongols. I actually had to box up one of the GBOH games, which I think is Hoplite, because I couldn't fit them all on the shelf together. But fortunately, GMT tends to realize that particular product line needs to be kept in print, at least the core stuff like Alexander at SPQR, and presumably Caesar's been out of print for ages. So... and even the Cataphract got a recent reprint, so... Jeff, I don't think even like hardcore PC war games have really replaced or made much headway to replacing analog war games. Now, certainly we've seen a lot of digital adaptations of existing games. Got a whole bunch from well, not a whole bunch, but a few from GMT, for example. Plus, there's the lock and load tactical thing, which looks nice. I don't know. There's some stuff from reprint is not the word you're looking for because it was all printed on demand. I think they had a license for a set period for it, and that license ran out. And then I think Berg was dead, so they wasn't going to get renewed. Caesar and Alexandria is interesting and unique because it is ancient city fighting. How often do you see that? So, John Longshore, the current version, the new version of Alexander includes all of the expansions. There were 3 expansions for it, or maybe 4, depending on how you count it. So the new version of Alexander is the one to get. Then you don't have to worry about the expansions. And then if you have the new SPQR, one of the expansions, I think it was War Elephant, kind of like splits between a Greek battle and a Roman battle. And one of them is reprinted in SPQR, and the other one, Raphia, is reprinted in Alexander. So, Dynasty does have a little more bits and bobs than your typical Hollenspiel game. Brant, thanks for stopping by. Kyle Reese mentions not enough French Indochina war games. There are a few. There's the Dan Ben Phu game from Legion Wargames, Kim Kanger, which has a pretty good reputation. Don't have any experience with it myself. There's not that much, though. I can't argue with that. So I think Battlecry was the first Commands and Colors game to use those mechanics before it was called Commands and Colors. And it was definitely popular at the time. I gotta get all this crap put away, man. I got all the Commands and Colors, these hex things and all this stuff all over the place. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna organize it. Right now that's looking like it in a giant pile. So it's gonna annoy me. All right, so let's since we're talking about ASL, let's take a look at the website. Because that information is here. Let me pull this up. Okay, so this is Rising Sun shipping to pre-orders. Has been on pre-order for a long time. Revised Chapter G, Chapter H, Chapter Z, which is the Gavutu Tanambogo campaign. And now that's the HASL that was in the last printing of Rising Sun. Plus 1,300 counters, plus another 592 counters, plus a bunch of boards, plus 2 HASL maps. So the Gavutu Tanambogo is the one that was in there before. The new one is Hell's Corner. What's Hell's Corner? I have no idea. But I'm going to find out in mere days, probably. A bunch of overlays, 32 scenarios, including all these scenarios, which I have no further information on. You can look at the ASL scenario database if you want to. But it's a lot of scenarios, right? So there's a lot here. Some of these are revisions of old ones, and some of them were in action packs or various other out-of-print publications. So the other thing that's coming soonish is Hollow Legions, which is the new Italian module, which has also been, long anticipated. Let me put it that way. This has the 16 original scenarios from West of Alamein and Hollow Legions, all of which are desert scenarios. So the stuff that's in for King and Country is like the non-desert British scenarios plus a pile of other stuff. I have gotten the stuff from NWS, by the way, in the last 2 weeks, maybe week. So if folks, were concerned about that situation, it looks like that's starting to loosen up now. All right, so Hollow Legions has 53 scenarios, which is crazy. Rules Chapter F revised, Chapter H revised, Chapter A revised, one chapter divider. Soldiers of the Negus is this. It's a Italians in East Africa campaign game, or HASL, I guess. So there's a lot here. I mean, if you're an ASL player, and I have Hollow Legions, but I have the Avalon Hill Hollow Legions, right? So I don't have any of these updated scenarios or any of that. So I absolutely have this on order. Well, we've got an arrangement to have it on order. Let me put it that way. It ain't cheap, but it's I mean, if you look at look at the contents. Oh, come on. This has 5 counter sheets, which are probably a mix between, so it's probably just Italians and Ethiopians, right? Whereas Rising Sun has 3 orders of battle in it. It's got the Japanese, the Chinese, and the U.S. Marines. So, Tonkin, the First Indochina War. Good catch on that. That's true, too. So, Pete has mentioned that Hollow Legion should print early November. I think Pete had said relatively recently that they have some of the components and are waiting for some of them back. So, that should be along at a reasonable pace at the end of 2021 here. MMP is in the fortunate position, if you want to call it that, of printing all their stuff domestically. So the difference, as far as I can tell, there might be a few more scenarios, but the difference, as far as I can tell, is that Hell's Corner HASL. I don't know that there are any other differences. That's definitely a Pete question. I'm guessing the answer is no, but I'll be happy to be corrected on that. E4 Herman, in the face of MMP coming into the stream and telling us it should be ready to go in November, E4 Herman says he heard that it's in January. So I'm gonna, no offense, but I'm gonna take Pete's word for this. He's supposed to have the inside track on this. So feed is choppy. What the hell? Let's check it again. This is the problem with the internet. No, it seems to be working. You know, more or less working anyway. So, Perfidious Albion, I'll tell you what. I some time ago, I kind of said to myself, I am just not going to be able to get all of those historical ASL modules. It's just not going to happen. I'll buy the new ones as they come out. I'm still doing that. Or as they are mysteriously found in the back corners of the warehouse in the case of Festung Budapest. So I'm not going to get Tarawa unless it's reprinted. In which case, and it is of the ones of the HASLs, the ones that are most interesting to me are the Stalingrad ones and Tarawa. I'm less interested, truthfully, in something like the Bridge Too Far. People really want that for the Black SS counters, rather than for the engaging campaign game, necessarily. Now, I'd love to see like print and play versions of this stuff, like made available on Wargame Vault, for example. So, I mean, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that, but I don't have a lot of those, so it'd be hard to say. That Philippine module is in the works. I want to say that's coming. So I would say, I mean, I think it would be cool to have Hell's Corner, the new Hell's Corner HASL available separately for those people who have the previous edition of Rising Sun and don't have it. I mean, I certainly, if I had the previous Rising Sun, new HASL or not, I would not be buying this one because it's just too much money, right? And how am I going to do with another counter set, right? That'd be crazy. The secondary market value does not necessarily relate in a linear way to the demand for a reprint. So, publishers got to make these decisions on their own. I can't tell them your numbers are wrong. Even if they, well, I can say that, but I might be full of shit too. So, a publisher is going to have information that randos on the internet do not have. So they're going to have more information to base those decisions than I have. If you really want the Black SS counters, you can go buy the Black SS counters from any of a number of third-party ASL counter manufacturers. And they're actually very nice counters, for the most part. So, Tarawa does go for a big pile of money. So, anyway, I'm more concerned about audio in general than I am about video on these things. So hopefully the audio is at least fine. So I have had a number of people asking me about BCS over the last couple of weeks, and there seems to be some level of excitement over Ericourt, which is going to be a really nice introduction to, well, I mean, it's going to be a modestly sized, modestly priced introduction to the system for people who are thinking about it without them necessarily having to soak a giant pile of money into a larger module like Panzer's Last Stand. And I want to say Last Blitzkrieg is out of print now. I might be wrong. Calories, what nation has the most Wargame cameos? You'd think it'd be Germany. Depends what you mean by cameos, I suppose. But, I mean, I've got I'm going to say Germany just on the basis of World War I and World War II, right? So, I mean, it's probably not wildly off base to guess that there are as many World War II war games released every year as every other period combined. And that's what, and of those, the vast majority involve the Germans in some capacity. So that's why, if I had to guess, I am not performing a wargame survey. By the way, if anybody has, then I'm gonna try and crowdsource this if possible. If anybody has any wargame designers who passed away after 2019, mention them in the chat. I am aware of Richard Berg, of course, but everybody else I could think of when asked that did pass away before 2019. Richard Berg was the only one that I could think of. One thing that I'm going to try and have a bunch of stuff piled on it already. So let me pull out new arrival and hopefully this week's unwrapping. This is the new ASL Action Pack, which contains 2 boards and a whopping 16 scenarios, most of which are Korea scenarios. So if you're a big fan of ASL Korea, you definitely want this action pack because it's going to just about double your scenario selection. Pretty sure there are Spanish Civil War scenarios in ASL, but I don't know that there's there's no module for that. Okay, so Pete says Last Blitzkrieg's still around, which is good. Expensive wargame on the market? Retail or aftermarket, I guess is the question. Aftermarket, it's going to be hard to say. I mean, the one I want to jump on is Campaign for North Africa, which is going for absolutely silly money right now. But there have also been a bunch of limited print run things. Kyle Reese mentions that War of the Ring thing that came in a box the size of a Mini Cooper, and which had its giant wooden crate. So, oh yeah, good call. If Chad, I thought that was before 2019. We're going to have to look at that. I'll verify that. Good call. Rick Barber. Good call. Rick did have... Can anybody give me a link to that memorial page? Because I've never seen that. Okay, we'll add Chad to the list. So, and Rick, who I'm pretty sure does. Oh boy, tornado warning. Please be safe, Jeff. You're going to always listen to me tomorrow when there's no tornado. Critical Hit has an ASL module for all kind of ridiculous stuff like Civil War and stuff. I don't take that product seriously. Is that Academy Stellaris 250 retail? That's crazy. I mean, it's big. Don't get me wrong. They were showing it off at Origins, but I didn't check the price. I got the video game. I don't need a board game version of it. Ooh, okay. So the Yukon board met earlier this week to discuss format for 2021 and have decided that Yukon 2021 will be a virtual convention. Yukon was often on my list of conventions I wanted to go to. Rick Loomis, good call. What about Greg Stafford? Well, he was before 2019, I think. Jeff Perrin, however, one of the other co-designers of the original RuneQuest, passed away recently. So, we got Rick. Rick had at least one game design to his credit as well. Summer Storm, which is, yet another Gettysburg game. So, on to Richmond does still go for a giant pile of money. But definitely not as much as Campaign for North Africa. I can tell you that, Second Front goes for $500. So, War in Europe, I tend to see the Decision War in Europe going as high as $7.99. Which is a absolutely bananas price. So, oh, John, thanks for stopping by. Wrong version of the rules got printed for Collector's Edition War in the Desert. I appear to have the right version of the rules, as far as I can tell. So, I did add Sarah to the list already, by the way. So, Consim World announcement. I don't know where that is. John Tiller's a good call, though. Let's poke around here. Well, if folks want to send me links, you can't put them in. You can't put them in the chat here. YouTube won't allow it. But you can email me at Ardwulf's Lair, all one word, no apostrophe, at gmail.com. Duke Seafried's a good call. Some of the old Labatt stuff going for high prices sounds unsurprising to me as well. But again, that's not a market I particularly keep up with. Darwin Bromley, who used to run Mayfair games, I think I heard that. Chris K, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I had a great time at Origins. I had like the the post Origins letdown where I'm like, oh, I felt bad it was over. I felt bad for spending so much money. I felt bad for not doing as much as I wanted to get done. I felt bad for eating all that delicious food over at the Indian restaurant. So I don't want to talk about that in the context of Lou. Lou, we got to see Lou at Origins this year, and Lou looked, we were glad to see him. Let me put it that way. But he looked, not as robust as the Lou of even recent years. So hopefully he can make a full recovery. I'm not sure how old Lou is, and I'm not gonna guess. So there we go. I don't care, John. I know who you are. It's all good. So much appreciated. So yeah, I got the Campaign for North Africa. It is one of the most expensive. Yeah, you if you have a shrink wrap copy, you can get it $800 for it. But no, this is not even a mustache. I got to shave it all off for Wednesday anyway. I just don't care today. So, that's a problem with me. That's the problem with me growing a beard, is it doesn't really grow in here, and I start looking like I'm a strange Amish descendant of Abraham Lincoln or a terrorist. So, I've never seen Case Blue go for 800 though. Not saying it hasn't happened, but I haven't seen it. $950 on eBay. Yeah, that's crazy talk right there. I'll tell you what. Campaign for North Africa, it's like a 1980 game, right? But it's a pretty good looking game, actually. It does not look bad. Most expensive Wargame would require significant research as to what the prices were back in the day, and I'm not doing that. So if somebody wants to put the effort into that might be an interesting curiosity. But Chuck, was good to see you at Origins. Unfortunately, we didn't have too much time, due to time constraints and energy level constraints. We're going to try and work on that. I say this every year, but I'm saying it publicly now, so hopefully I'll actually do something about it, as I would like to lose 30 pounds by Origins. So, walking through, that's a good idea, actually. And you know what? It's not like we don't have Civil War battlefields within driving distance of central Ohio. We absolutely do. There's some stuff in Kentucky. There's some stuff, obviously. There's some stuff, and even more stuff in Tennessee. So, and even like the Chickamauga battlefield is not that far away. I would really need to take up hiking as a serious activity if I were going to do that, because I would crap the hell out after 20 minutes. That'd be the problem. So maybe what we can do. It's a great idea, Mike. So thank you for that idea. Maybe we can pick a historical topic, and I could wander through the neighborhood, ranting like a madman. So, Jeff, okay, so Campaign for North Africa. It is having a bit of a renaissance. Part of that is probably due to the additional exposure brought to it by The Big Bang Theory. I actually watched that episode the other day. I'm not a huge fan of that show, to be completely honest about it. But I did watch the episode. The plot, if you don't know, is Bernadette is pregnant and she's overdue, and the husband, Wolowitz, has to go work on some lab thing. So he's in the lab, and he has had everybody else coming over to keep her busy and occupied and watched while she's about to, have a baby, and he's working on whatever grant proposal. And Sheldon comes over with Campaign for North Africa. So they do get a couple of good Campaign for North Africa jokes in there. Anyway, one thing about Campaign for North Africa is that it really, I think, will benefit enormously from playing it on Vassal or playing it with spreadsheets. and those are things that weren't available in 1980. So the Decision does have a game called the North African Campaign on their pledge list, which is what I think their revision of Campaign for North Africa morphed into. I'm not sure if it's the exact same scale or not. And I will say this. Doesn't Campaign for North Africa only cover the Western Desert Campaign? I think that's correct. Somebody will correct me if that's wrong. But I thought that it only covered the Western Desert Campaign, which makes it sound even crazier, actually. Not that dissimilar in scale from DAC, though, to be honest. Well, this was a little Stigler. This is different. This is I think they originally pitched it as Campaign for North Africa 2, and then they walked that back when they saw that they didn't think that was viable. So, yeah, and Clay is doing the Vassal module and doing his own, presumably spreadsheet-based record keeping, and I suspect it's going a lot smoother than games of Campaign for North Africa that were attempted in the 80s. Alan Salazar recommends The Defeated on Netflix. So, actually, there's a whole pile of stuff that's like coming out at the end of the year because people are tired of sitting in the house, right? So, there's two Marvel movies out now if you count Venom, the new Venom, which I haven't seen. I didn't think the first one was all that great, but it made $1 billion, so obviously I'm nuts. There's another Marvel movie coming out soon. The new Dune comes out on the 22nd. You can either go to the theater and watch that, or you can watch it on HBO Max. Unless you have a pretty good home theater solution, maybe you want to think about going to see that in the theater. Let me leave it at that. Perfidious Albion says that Civil War battlefield preservation is somewhat mixed. Yeah, he's right. A lot of Gettysburg is a lot of Gettysburg is overrun with suburban sprawl now, from what I understand. I've never been there, so. Well, Desert Fox Deluxe has all of North Africa, too. Admittedly, not a lot happened in a big section in the middle there, other than Rommel got chased, or not Rommel, but the Axis got chased across the coastline. So I think you got to give Desert Fox Deluxe credit for being ambitious, right? And including the whole thing. And I'm not aware of any other approach to the North African Desert World War II campaign that covers the entire campaign on one contiguous map, other than War in the Desert, which of course has 3 times the footprint. Noble Knight has Labatide Diaspora Nestling for $12.95. Okay, well, if Noble Knight says it's worth $12.95, it might be worth $12.95 to somebody, but it ain't worth $12.95 to me. So I'm good. I'm really okay. Even like the new that Bautzen game that came out from Marshall Enterprises like 2 or 3 years ago, that went for like $400, like MSRP, and they only printed like 200 copies or something like that. So, John, we talked a little bit more about Desert Fox Deluxe last week, and I think I'd like to take a closer look at that. But it's one of a bunch of things in the pipeline. Another thing in the pipeline that I want to get to in the immediate future is Granada. So we'll see if we can make that happen. That would be nice. I did buy a bunch of stuff at Origins, and I got two large games coming. I am not, at no point in the immediate future am I going to be busting out Fire in the East, though. So Fire in the Lake, who knows? That could happen. You can get down to Antietam if you make the trip to Maryland for winter offensive, the Antietam battlefield's not that far from our route down there. You got to be concerned about the weather. I mean, you don't want to be trudging around out there in the snow, but there's Alan. There's a pile of games on Torch. I mean, there's well, not about that many, but there is the Europa Torch game. Let me put it that way. And you can do Tunisia as well, obviously, and either that or Desert Fox Deluxe. John Longshore says that if the Commonwealth was not even in Egypt, Rommel would have been hard pressed to take Alexandria and the Suez without taking Malta. I think there's a strong argument to be made there. Pete, thanks for stopping by. So I'll just say that I think, assuming you realize, and you're okay with this when you're going in, that what you are getting when you go see the Dune movie is roughly, or a little more, a third of the book, that you're going to probably walk out of that movie theater really pleased. Let me put it that way. Is that a serious price, Solo Wargaming Show? Did they actually say they'll pay you $89 for your copy? Because whenever I've sold stuff to them, which I have done, I've found that they're not going to give you a top dollar for it if they buy it from you, obviously, but they give you a non-trivial percentage of what they'll sell it for. It's not like half-price books where they'll buy it from you for a nickel and sell it for $100. So I'm also watching, and I've talked about this on Twitter, the Foundation show on Apple TV. It's 4 episodes in. I think there's 10 episodes in the first season. It's already been renewed for season 2. It's an interesting adaptation that I'm not sure exactly where they're going with it yet. I'm still watching it. I'm enjoying it. It looks great. The cast is great. They have gender flipped a bunch of roles. I think that's completely reasonable. You couldn't. It would look wrong if you put that. If you did like the straight adaptation of that first book, Foundation, right, the 5-story fix-up. If you just tried to do a straight adaptation of that with a bunch of white dudes sitting around desks talking for 10 hours, it would be an absolute shitball. So I have no, and let's face it, most of those characters, the original characters were largely uninteresting, right? Harry Seldon's interesting. There's only 3 standout characters in that first book. Harry Seldon, Salvor Hardin, and Hober Mallow are the 3 standout characters from the first book. Don't even get me started on USPS right now. I can't talk about it because maybe we'll talk about it next week. There's a thing that was supposed to arrive yesterday, which is Sunday, but it didn't, and UPS says delivered, and it wasn't delivered, and it says I picked it up at the post office at 6:19 p.m. on Sunday, which obviously didn't happen. So the chances, possibly doped to the eyeballs after surgery, tomorrow I will call the post office and ask them what the shit they're doing. I am enjoying it. The episodes are not all equally good. Sometimes it takes a while for these shows to find their footing, right? Game of Thrones was not immediately awesome. Half-price books used to be awesome. Half-price books is now half-price crooks. I've got very little desire to even go in there anymore. I have no desire to see the new James Bond movie. The last couple have sucked badly, so I'm good. Ted Lasso is the best thing on Apple TV and possibly the best thing on television right now at all anywhere. That is plausible. That is a fantastic show. Jim Ozarski says the Chancellorsville is in decent shape. Fredericksburg is in good shape, other than a weird apartment building. Antietam is great. Shiloh is really good if you get there at dawn. John Longshore, I think you're probably right. You're probably if you're going to dump a huge collection and you don't want to individually sell it, which is an enormous quantity of work. Then I mean, even running my sales, which is less work than eBay, it's still an enormous quantity of work. The last sale, I put in like an entire 40-hour work week into that sale. So yeah, well, that was kind of the point, though, Chris. So the For All Mankind is like an alternate history space program show. That's pretty good too. That network TV show with Reese Witherspoon's supposed to be good, but it's not my thing. I have no intention of watching it. Greyhound is queued up. I'll be watching that soon. I just signed up for Apple TV, so it's also a pain in the ass to quit Apple TV when you want to quit. I don't even plan to go through it again. I plan to simply scramble my credit card numbers. So we'll get down there at some point. But it would be cool to do that kind of thing, to be honest. So I do really like the idea. So maybe we'll do a walk-in podcast at some point. Might maybe do it as a podcast rather than as a show. I've been thinking about that, but I have no particular reason to do that. The Death of Stalin is a must see. It is hilarious. Serious, a pretty accurate reflection of the actual events, actually. Although played for black comedy, it is also a pretty good reflection of the actual events. And even the casting's pretty great. The casting was done intentionally to provide characters, all the characters with like a mix of different English accents. So you've got like Jason Isaacs versus Steve Buscemi, right? And that was done to reflect the fact that the Soviet Union is this giant multi-ethnic thing, right? That's why they made Stalin the Cockney guy. Because he was considered to have an uncouth accent by Russians. I got my Revolution Games stuff. I mean, we're all ordering tons of stuff from the U.S. Postal Service, right? So relatively few packages have gone awry, and almost always what that means is they're just delivered a day later, sometimes a couple days later. So here's the thing. If I don't get it tomorrow, I will call up the post office and ask for an explanation, and then if I don't get it the day after that, I'll demand a refund, and the merchant I bought it from will give me a refund. So it's not the end of the world. I was very stressed out about it yesterday, and I'm not going to be stressed out about it today. So yeah, I got no interest in the Jason Momoa thing. Not because of Jason Momoa, just because the movie, the thing doesn't look that interesting. So yeah, I mean, I can't really complain too much. If I search my one thing that if you got a lot of stuff coming in, USPS informed delivery will like you set it up on your address so that it will tell you what you have incoming, so I can see my incoming stuff, my wife's incoming stuff, and all that stuff. And it's yeah, looks like I got a Wednesday delivery. That's unfortunate because I'm going to be in the office on Wednesday. Maybe I'll check C out, but I got so much stuff to watch right now. I still haven't finished watching The Man in the High Castle. It just has seemed really heavy for me whenever I've thought of watching it, and I don't necessarily want to deal with that. That's why I haven't watched The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. It's supposed to be real good, but it looks real heavy, and I don't know if I want to deal with that. So, it's funny. I might have it in here. Hold on a second. Yes. This is my, I don't know if I'll get in YouTube trouble for this or not. This is my grandfather's Army service knife from World War II. It has been passed down to me, and I've cleaned it up a little bit. Not that much. I guess there's so many knife videos on YouTube that it can't possibly be much of a problem. The knife itself is in really good shape. There's a lot of pitting on the pommel. The sheath is absolutely shot, but it's it's got sort of that stacked leather handle. It's a really pretty nice knife. Um, and I've gotten it sort of sharp. I should probably. It really does need to be polished, which I need to do. So I haven't really monkeyed with it in a long time. I really should make a new sheath for it because this sheath is I mean, it's 75-year-old leather, right? So it's super brittle, and it's amazing that it's held up this well. Actually, this was in a tool chest in his garage for decades. So pretty sure he never stabbed anybody with it. He was a truck driver in what is now Pakistan. Actually, he was stationed in Karachi. So, as far as I'm aware, he never saw any action. My other grandfather was a pharmacist's mate on a destroyer. That destroyer did see some action. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, Vince, I kind of agree. I mean, I've had a lot of packages come through the post office, especially in the last year or two, and I've gotten absolutely everything. You know, a couple times things were late. A couple times things were fairly like a week late, but otherwise, The Alamo is literally in the middle of downtown San Antonio now. So yeah, I don't know that you're getting a real authentic Alamo experience there. I haven't been there, but it was a thing that I had looked at doing when I was in Texas for work years ago. John Longshore says you could confuse it for a Taco Bell. So I just realized I had that knife in my drawer next to me here. I got it, amidst a pile of old watches and stuff. So no, not on the Murmansk convoy pipeline. No. I mean, that's true. It is in that sense a city built around a battlefield. I've never been to this day. I've never been to San Antonio. I've been to two cities in Texas, Houston, which I have flown through several times, and Nuevo Laredo, because we were flying into, we were going to across the border, or Laredo to go across the border to Nuevo Laredo. So, I'm pretty sure I could take Phil Collins even in my current dilapidated condition. I don't know about you guys. I don't know. Maybe he beat my ass. That's plausible. I mean, this is in the 40s too, right? It's still literally part of India at the time. So, I'll agree with Mike, who says FedEx sucks. FedEx does in fact suck. So my great uncle, same grandfather who was in Karachi, his brother was in the 101st Airborne, and he did drop on the night before D-Day and was around Bastogne during the Bulge. I don't have a lot of details on that, but the family legend is that he got a Purple Heart because he caught a bullet in the ass cheek on the way down on the early morning hours of June 6th. So that is the family legend. I mean, it's not bad as these things go, right? So let's take a look. So we should have an unboxing video this week. I don't know what that'll be. It might be the action pack. I still haven't opened the action pack though, so I'm not sure it'll be the action pack. But we will have an unboxing video this week, unless I forget about it again, which could happen. Especially since I will be on drugs tomorrow. But let's make sure we haven't missed anything here. There's a video coming tomorrow, which is an RPG video, first RPG video in quite a while, which will be a look at the RuneQuest starter set, the new RuneQuest starter set, which I think I put over on the other side of the room. It's really nice. I'm really happy with it. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check that video out. And then Wednesday we are with Dan. I don't know what we're talking about yet. We'll come up with a topic at the last minute as we usually do, and that will be here on Ardwulf's Lair. Yeah, I wish I'd had the sense to have these discussions uh, with with him when I had the chance. You know, even my grandfather, who didn't really talk much about it, except to say he was in India, which was, it was India at the time. So, John Longshore brings up a good point here. We do have, and battlefield preservation is still an issue, but we have battlefields, right? Because we have a lot of space over here, and in Europe there's a lot of that area is extremely densely populated. A lot of those battle sites from the 30 Years War and 100 Years War and blah blah blah, blah all those wars that they fought over that territory, that same territory over and over and over again, and it's all urban sprawl now. So the starter set is brand new. I'm not sure. They were selling it at Origins and they were selling it at Gen Con. It should be available for sale on their website anytime, like within the next week or two. Check out the unboxing video for tomorrow. It's really packed with stuff. I'm really happy with it, and it's one of the best looking RPG products I've ever seen in my life. So, but we'll have a war game unboxing on Thursday too. So, I mean, we never just as here, we never really stick all that strictly to the nominal topic. So we talk about what the chat wants to talk about. So that is a great story, John, actually. So, John, it's all good. I saw your pile of your consignment agent's stuff that's coming over to you. That's really not such a bad not such a bad price to have all that stuff shipped, actually. Although I'm sure you're paying to ship it twice, once to your dude in California and then once to you. So it ain't nothing. But still, it could be worse, right? I pay less than that shipping to Canada. Jim Ozarski says there's a highway running across the battlefield at Brightonfeld, which is fantastic, actually. Well, I mean, think about the history of the UK, and UK ships, and the Royal Navy's been around for friggin' hundreds of years. They can't keep everything, right? So, I mean, Chris at NWS is shipping again. I had my order for 2 copies of Hood Strikes North, which I began to be concerned about, and I just got them like a week or two ago. So Chris had some personal tragedies that came up. He's trying to work his way through that and work NWS's way through the backlog of stuff. So. I'll be buying from Chris again in the future, I'm sure. Not this week. I'm good for this week. I'm good. Really nothing. So much stuff. So, well, right. Nobody's coming here for the focused discussion, right? If you want like a round intellectual roundtable, you go to Fred Serval's channel and watch the Wargaming book club. That's the kind of thing I think of when I think of these highfalutin discussions about wargaming as a discipline and all that stuff. Other folks are doing that. I don't think I'm capable of doing that. You do get, I'm not sure about tracking. I can tell you, you do get an email notification when it ships, and then I track it through USPS informed delivery at that point. So I don't really care whether they give me a tracking number or not. I can get that from informed delivery. I have not been invited to the next show, so I don't know if I need to read up on that or not. If not, I'm not up on the reading. I haven't read it yet. I just had just come in like that week when I suggested it. That's why I suggested it, because it was like right here, and I could say, "Here, look, read this." I will read it if I need to. So there's as it is, I've read parts of the book. It's an academic text, right? It's not like you need to like read it cover to cover. It doesn't read that way. You can totally read the introduction and then read the individual articles in isolation. And of course, we're talking about, somebody's going to ask, so trying not to spill all this junk. Too much junk. Zones of Control: Perspectives on Wargaming, edited by Pat Harrigan and Matthew Kirschenbaum, forward by James F. Dunnigan. And this is, again, an academic work on the discipline of wargaming. It's from what I can see, and it touches on, computer wargaming and professional wargaming and hobbyist wargaming and stuff like that. So if you want like a really rich resource on wargaming as a discipline, this is kind of the thing I'd point you to. So I am aware that Zones of Control is the most popular option. That is because I have my finger on the pulse of this hobby. So one of these days, Jim, I want to go to Waterloo, but I got so many places I want to go, and I haven't gone to any of them if they're not in Ohio already. So I'm kind of tired of making wish lists of fabulous European vacation spots that I'm never going to get to. So maybe I'll get to, it came up because of Granada, it's been a lifelong ambition of me to go to Granada to see the Alhambra Palace. It's old Moorish palace that is still there. And it's an amazing building. Link to the Academic Wargaming Book Club. So look at Fred Serval's channel, Homo Ludens. I'll put that in the chat. Yeah, okay, Fred's got more than 1,000 subscribers. So I was going to say, have I made Fred the channel of the week? But he's way ahead of things, so he does not need that. So check out Fred's channel. And the last one, and Fred's doing a lot of other good videos as well. So some of it's in French, unfortunately, which I took French in high school, but remember, I can count to 10 and say hello and goodbye, and I might be able to order in a restaurant in a horrific English. Let's hope that we did, in fact, reconnect. Oh, for shit's sake! I think we're back. We're gonna call it here in a minute anyway. Okay, we are back. We've had 3 episodes of Hitching tonight. That's just the internet here today. We've had a bad couple of internet days, so sorry about that. Sorry about all the troubles. So let's not cue up the J. Giles Band. Sorry about that. Got tired of that song when they played it every 10 minutes on the radio. But we are going to, I think, call it a night in about 2 minutes. So if anybody has any last-minute questions, feel free to ask them. More folks listen to this show after Monday's live stream. But I really do appreciate the folks who do come by and show up, because that's engagement with the channel. It really helps the channel. Even the comments, not even the comments too, right, that happen after the fact. So, internet sucks. Battle of Detroit. There was a Battle of Detroit, wasn't there? There was a game about the pseudo-war between Ohio and Michigan over Toledo that I think Hollenspiel did. And I should probably own that. Ohio lost. We have Toledo. So, that was a thing. Cussing a bit much? Not really. So, we have cussed way more than this on this show before. Just for the sake of not having problems with YouTube, I do try to keep it to a minimum, but I can throw out some colorful words here and there. So if I have a giant black eye or an eye patch or something like that next week, that's why. Toledo War, that actually sounds pretty cool. So everybody, wish me luck for tomorrow, and we'll see you. I'll be on social media, so if you really want to hear the update about how it went, look at me on Twitter. There's links to all that stuff in the video description. Don't go to Facebook. Facebook sucks. My social media presence, where I actually talk to people, is on Twitter for the most part. So all the good wishes are appreciated. That's not a fair swap, is it, Jeff? I don't think that's true, but there was a kerfluffle about, I don't even know the details, even though I'm from Ohio, about who was going to control that strip along the water's edge, which is valuable, real estate, because it is along the water's edge. At some point, I'll check the game out. But right now, I've got way too much stuff on the table already. So I really appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Please don't forget to help support the channel. There's a lot of ways to do that, right? You can share the videos around. You can come here and participate in the discussion. You can give the video thumbs. Please don't forget the thumbs. You can chip into the Patreon or to the merch store, buy some nice merch. And the merch, I'm very happy with my merch, okay? Even though they're all dirty from Origins and I haven't done laundry yet. Or the Ko-Fi, if you just want to throw me $5 or $10 or whatever it is. It's all much appreciated and lets me help keep the show going, keep me in games, keep me in equipment, and helps pay for things like StreamYard, which we're going to end up having to pay for because we really want the extra capabilities that Restream was bringing to the table without the technical problems that Restream was bringing to the table, if you know what I'm saying. So once again, thanks very much for watching, and we'll